Welcome back, everyone. We are doing Queen Elizabeth II, saluting the Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief. This was a recommendation. I'm very excited because I've been here and I feel like we're going to see a lot of nostalgic things. Obviously, this is a few years ago, given Queen Elizabeth has been deceased since 2022. Nevertheless, we're going to watch it and we're going to see what we got. Let's go.
Buckingham Palace, a place synonymous with the close ties between the British monarchy and the armed forces. It wasn't just the immaculately turned out palace guards which tourists flocked to see, but the Queen's household was full of serving and retired forces personnel who simply made the place tick.
And I don't know if this is a different format of changing the guard or if this is like a specific ceremony itself.
The Queen relied on them for a multitude of tasks, from running the royal household to the flag sergeant, making sure the raising of the royal standard is timed to coincide with the exact moment the Queen passes through the palace gates.
The detail of that flagpole is just immaculate. Even like the very top of it is so crazy looking. Obviously, if you don't know the royal standard, the Queen, the Regent is in Buckingham. If it's the UK flag, they're not. Very simple, right?
Coincide with the exact moment the Queen passes through the palace gates. In private, the royal family referred to themselves as the Firm, and throughout her long reign, the Queen performed her duties as head of state with a true sense of vocation.
These carriages too, there's you can see a lot of these carriages under if you book under, I believe it's the Mews, MEWS, you can see these carriages and like the different ones throughout history. It's really interesting. But look how many, that is a ton of guards.
Always conducted with exemplary dedication and energy. But if the House of Windsor could be said to have a profession, it was surely that of duty in the military. The Queen herself had served in uniform, as had her father, husband, sons, and grandsons.
Yeah, World War II.
I mean, of course, the whole country looked up to the Queen for all sorts of reasons. Her dedication, her length of service, all of these things. But I do think that the armed forces and the monarch have this absolutely unique relationship, because it is to the monarch that the loyalty is owed.
And when they say Children's Day, they mean it. 70,000 of them, a record number, greets the two most important children, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret Rose, with a small-throated roar.
When was this? This got to be like the 30s.
This footage shows the 11-year-old Princess Elizabeth attending a Children's Day at the Aldershot Military Tattoo in
Early 40s or late 30s?
1937.
Late 30s.
In those days, it was a massive spectacle and was a day to cherish alongside her mother and 70,000 cheering youngsters.
This is awesome footage, by the way. This is really cool.
2 years later, with her sister, Princess Margaret, she stepped ashore to join in an official visit to Britannia Royal Naval College in Dartmouth. It's where the 13-year-old was first to meet Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark, aged 18 and then an officer cadet.
Yeah, Philip, of course, comes from by way of Greece, Mountbatten. Very interesting story himself. We should dive deeper in some of these royal. I don't want to get too tabloid in terms of the royal history, because there's like a fine line. But the history part's really interesting to me. Of course, this is Windsor in the background.
Duties on behalf of her parents, the King and Queen, swiftly followed. This was her first solo public appearance. On her 16th birthday, she reviewed contingents of 8 battalions of the Grenadier Guards at Windsor Castle. She was already their regimental colonel. The Queen shared a particular bond with those like her who had put on uniform during the country's time of greatest peril. She was of that World War II generation.
Taking a driving course at a training center is Princess Elizabeth, 2nd Subaltern, ATS. She has been learning to drive and maintain all types of motor vehicles.
Can you just imagine though? Like, she's gotta live one of the greatest lives any human has ever lived. Just given like the circumstances of how young she took the reins and what became of her early teenage years, which was World War II. Think about it, like during the Blitz, like the uncertainty, like people were like, "Hey, come to Canada," like several times to a lot of these the royal families, and they did not oblige. From the most part, from what I believe, given the fact that the uncertainty during the 1940s of you just don't know when Germany is going to, be above the sky or in the sky above you, and it's very scary, very real. You have to have a lot of grit to been in Britain in 1940 and throughout the war, but the Blitz, it just psychologically just does something to you. It had to have, for those people that lived in London and other metropolitan areas that were affected during that time. But still, you had, like I said before, you had to have a lot of grit to get out of that with a steady mind.
Honorary 2nd Subaltern Princess Elizabeth qualified as a driver and mechanic in the Auxiliary Territorial Service and was said to return home each evening to Buckingham Palace, proudly showing off
She's changing a tire.
the grease beneath her fingernails after a day spent working under the bonnet of a truck. It meant that when the war ended later that year,
Same statue, by the way, right there. It's crazy how pristine it looks still to this day.
the princess could join in the nation's relief and celebration, knowing, like millions of others, she had not shirked from doing her bit. 1947 saw a rare glimpse of Princess Elizabeth having fun, enjoying some horseplay on the deck of HMS Vanguard as the battleship took her on tour to South Africa. It was in Cape Town that she recorded her 21st birthday radio broadcast, in which she reflected on what her generation had just been through.
I am thinking especially today of all the young men and women who were born about the same time as myself and have grown up like me in terrible and glorious years
Terrible yet glorious. That's a good quote.
of the Second World War.
The marriage. By the way, I mean, if you're watching this video, you've probably seen it, but I can't recommend The Crown enough. Obviously, you're not going to get every detail right, but you don't have I don't think you have a better representation of television for this than The Crown. Amazing
That
actors,
year,
too.
Britain, still in the grips of post-war austerity, was cheered up by the royal wedding.
And that's the beautiful, beautiful carriage right there.
It was the start of a short period of her life as a service wife and mother. For a couple of years from 1949, Princess Elizabeth enjoyed being an ordinary Navy wife when Prince Philip was posted to Malta.
I think when you
So he got posted to Malta. I didn't know that.
see the photographs of her when she was first married to a sailor, Prince Philip, in Malta, it looked a very happy time. So I think that personal connection was if you like,
Look at that photograph behind, or that painting behind him. Amazing.
cemented then. And then, of course, the unfolding relationship with the armed forces that she's held so wonderfully.
A most impressive flypast by jet aircraft.
By 1951, with the King's health declining, she was taking on more duties in preparation for her succession.
Well, it came quick too. Like they literally, and they take out a lung. Literally took out a lung, so he was on one lung in 1952. Her predecessor, obviously, her father. It's quite a sad story too. He did not live as long as he should have.
Here, presenting colours to the RAF.
But, without the unfortunate, you wouldn't have such a long rule of, and you see that with so many regents, right? Not regents, sorry. Yeah, you see that with so many kings that have lived for long times. I mean, there's two obvious things, kings or queens I'm thinking of immediately. Queen Victoria, we just talked about, and then of course Louis the 14th. Just think about how long those three right there, Elizabeth II, Victoria, and Louis the 14th, how long they ruled. And because of that, just the length itself, it projects a certain legacy.
The presentation of the King's colour followed. It was the first to be presented to the Royal Air Force.
(1952) brought the death of her father, King George VI, who served as a Royal Navy sub-lieutenant in World War I's Battle of Jutland. And in the summer of the following year came the coronation. And what
Right. Obviously, yes. It's very formal. So it's kind of like a immediate secession upon death. Like immediately she becomes the queen, right? And she's in Africa at the time on on like a safari with her husband Prince Philip, and then yeah, immediately gets she's one of the last people to get the news too, just because of the region she was in. It's insane to think about. And she left with her father being alive, and while she was gone, her father died, and she came back queen. Had already lived through World War II as a young teenager into adulthood, and now this. And of course, formality, you're going to wait a certain time. It's going to be very planned, very traditional, very traditional. First coronation, of course, by television. Huge deal.
many hailed as the dawn of a new Elizabethan age. The succession also gave the military an opportunity to showcase its might for their new commander-in-chief.
Dang, look at that. Aircraft carriers. I bet you a lot of these ships were decommissioned in the next 20, 30 years, though.
Along the lines of ships at anchor in the Solent, the frigate HMS Surprise was to pass in performance of her duty as royal yacht for the Queen.
Much reduced since wartime, but far larger than today's forces. At Spithead, in the Solent, the coronation review of the fleet took place.
They had a lot more colonies then, too.
A fleet then still a formidable force across the world's oceans.
Yeah, sun never set. These jets.
Her reign began as jet power was replacing propellers, so the Air Force showed how it was
Ooh, that's a nice one right there.
equipping for the Cold War at its coronation review at RAF Odium in Hampshire.
Squadron Leader Waterton in the Gloucester Javelin rent the sky at 575 miles an hour.
Right from the start, the Queen took a real interest in these events.
The Queen had a very special relationship with the armed forces based on a number of things. Firstly, she was a very warm, intelligent person, interested in everybody. Secondly, after all, her husband had fought in the Second World War. Her father had been in the Navy in the First World War. She had been in the Women's Army Corps at the end of the Second World War. Her son had fought in the Falkland Islands, and one of her grandsons had fought in Africa.
Wait, her son? Fought in the Falkland Islands? Which one? It wasn't Charles, was it? Was it Andrew? Or was it... That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Afghanistan, and the other is a helicopter pilot. So she knows a great deal about the armed forces from the inside. And there's no point in ever trying to tell her something that is nonsense, because she'll spot it right away. She was very, very much loved by the soldiers, sailors and airmen, and everybody felt it was really special when the Queen came to visit them, because she took such an interest in what they were doing, and one could tell her all sorts of things that you couldn't tell a lot of other people, highly secret things that she was allowed to know, and she knew a great deal about what went on.
We're in Buckingham now. This is the courtyard.
One way the Queen kept in touch with the armed forces was by holding audiences with senior figures. Here, the incoming and outgoing colonels of the Royal Welsh arrive at the palace to meet the Queen. Her Majesty had been Colonel-in-Chief of their regiment since it was formed in 2006.
The outgoing and incoming colonels, the Royal Welsh, Your Majesty.
Good morning, Your Majesty. Philip Napier, outgoing James Swift, who's taking over as we speak.
And you're just taking over at the moment, aren't you?
That's right. Yes.
Because you've done how long now?
I would have done 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
It seems to have flown by.
I'm sure, yes.
Very great privilege to have been the Colonel Regiment of a very fine regiment.
Very fine
Which
regiment indeed,
you know
yes.
from very many years ago.
Yes.
And of course, protocol demands that we do not reveal the conversations, but you rest assured that the Queen took enormous interest in the state.
And right, they've closed the doors usually. And like I said, I can't reference this enough. It's not completely nonfiction. The Crown kind of gives you an insight because they studied relentlessly about the customs and all that, but how people will be buzzed in, sit down, very private one-on-one conversations when it's a one-on-one, usually with the PMs, the form of government, and conversations around crises and particular things that go on in the day-to-day of Parliament and so forth. But it's so interesting.
Of her armed forces, and well informed, my goodness, yes. You wouldn't want to go into the room ill prepared.
I've become the clerk to the Worshipful Company of Saddlers.
Saddlers, oh right. Well, that one might be quite interesting, actually.
Well, I like horses. So it's
well, that's good.
proven to be excellent.
Indeed.
What you could be certain of is that the Queen was extremely well informed. You are not going to in any way, I think, surprise her, and you wanted to make certain that she did not surprise you.
Preparation.
The Queen combined one-to-one audiences with royal reviews of military formations on a grand scale, which became a regular feature of the Buckingham Palace diary from her early days as monarch.
27th of March,
That makes sense. I didn't know she had a diary, but it makes sense that she would.
1969.
I should have known that.
The front parade, Woolwich. The visit of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II.
This might be late 50s, early 60s. I couldn't tell you, though.
Captain General, to her Royal Regiment of Artillery.
The style of coverage may have become less formal with the passing of the years, but the Queen continued to spend time among her forces as long as her health allowed. She listened to their concerns, raised them privately, and on rare occasions voiced them publicly.
25.
In 1977, during her Silver Jubilee review of the RAF, when the revolutionary Harrier jump jet headlined as the latest addition to Britain's military hardware,
They'll use that a lot in the Falklands just a few years later.
her speech referred to what then as now was a worry, reducing numbers and the spiralling cost of defence equipment.
Ever since the Allied victories in 1945, to which the Royal Air Force made such conspicuous contributions, the development of military aviation has been remarkable. Unfortunately, the rise in costs has been equally remarkable. At the Coronation Review at Odium, 640 aircraft took part. Today we shall see 137 in the air.
But out of those 137 probably, depending on what we're talking about, like a Harrier can do a heck of a lot more than anything that was in 1945.
Collective capabilities far surpass those of 24 years ago.
Yes.
But it was an unexpected conflict breaking out on the other side of the world that saw British forces, including her second son Prince Andrew,
Prince Andrew, okay.
fighting overseas. While he took part
I was about to say, what did he do?
in the South Atlantic campaign as a Royal Navy helicopter pilot, she shared the anxiety being felt by thousands of other military families.
It must have been a very scary time for her during the Falklands when Prince Andrew was down there. But you take it all those years forward when she had to watch her grandson go into a war zone. And you have to say all credit to both the lads for doing and wanting to do their duty.
In 1993, the Queen helped the RAF celebrate its 75th anniversary at a parade at RAF Marham in Norfolk. Such a keynote.
So first off, I want to say we're about halfway through this video, and it's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be very much like a singular event, but it's like a chronological timeline of her interactions with the military.
The event took months, if not years, of planning. But whatever lay in store, they could be sure the Queen wouldn't be fazed. She had done it all before.
We had a new standard, we had to deal with all of that. We were actually engaged in some operations in the Middle East at the same time. In fact, the press seemed more interested in the operations in the Middle East than our 75th anniversary, as I recall from the interviews.
Most of you will have seen in recent years dramatic changes in your day-to-day lives and in the role demanded of your service. In the 75 years since its formation, the Royal Air Force has time and time again demonstrated its ability to adapt and to respond.
So what year was it? It says this was 93, right? Yeah, I don't know if it was 93. If it's 93, 75 years. Quick math. Like the late 1918?
Respond quickly and effectively to changing circumstance.
The hallmark of her official engagements, such as in 1999, when she presented new colours to the Coldstream Guards, was that however many parades she inspected, however many salutes she took, the Queen always made those taking part feel that they were special to her.
Wherever you are, your colours will remain the symbol of my trust in you.
How heavy is that hat? Not her hat, their hats.
And I know that you will maintain your loyalty to me and to our country.
When you're actually there doing it, the actual parade itself.
And when did they start doing that?
You do feel a sort of like emotion, because obviously it's part of your battalion, it's part of the history, so there's quite a lot of mixed emotion between the ranks when you're actually standing there.
2002, the year of her Golden Jubilee, saw the Queen in Portsmouth, where a display of simulated warfighting was laid on by the combined services to mark the first half-century of her reign. In return, she spoke of her appreciation for all that they did.
That's really cool.
I am only too well aware of the tremendous contribution that the armed forces, including the volunteer reserves, have made to the standing and reputation of this country throughout the world during my reign. I would like to mention at this time the men and women of all three services engaged in the campaign against international terrorism, particularly those involved in operations in Afghanistan or deployed at sea in the region. So today, I would like to thank all of you for your part in defending Britain and preserving peace around the world. I cannot think of a worthier task.
The day concluded with one of the strangest delivered tributes she can ever have received, when a wetsuited military diver came ashore, James Bond style, to present the sovereign with a sopping wet bouquet.
Your Majesty, some flowers from your armed forces.
The
Wow.
dignity she demonstrated at
It's
all
interesting.
times meant she rarely showed emotion. But at 2002's Golden Jubilee Parade in the gardens of Buckingham Palace, where, for the first time, the historic units who made up the sovereign's ceremonial bodyguard paraded together, she seemed to have a lump in her throat as she gazed across at those who, despite their age, would literally lay down their lives for her.
Aircraft carrier.
Visiting Plymouth that year, when she boarded HMS Ocean to present new colours to the Royal Navy, she highlighted in her speech how personal experience had bound monarchy and military together.
And I would like to express my sympathy once again to the families and friends of those who have recently given their lives on active service. As a daughter, wife, and mother of naval officers, I want to pay tribute to the families for the support they give to those who are serving far from home.
In 2006, the Queen saw the next generation of her family step forward for military service.
Well, there's William.
She looked on with a grandmother's pride at Prince William's passing out parade at Sandhurst. Her delight perhaps tempered by her foreknowledge that his brother, Prince Harry, already commissioned in the Blues and Royals, was destined for duty in Afghanistan the following year, the first of his 2 operational tours in Helmand.
Wow.
As Prince William later trained to become a search and rescue pilot, the Queen called in on him in 2011 to get a personal update on his progress at RAF Valley. With such a close family involvement, the Queen keenly felt the pain of those who had lost loved ones in the military. So, in 2009, she authorised the creation of a new medal in her name.
And so I have asked that this emblem should be known as the Elizabeth Cross. This seems to me a right and proper way of showing our enduring debt to those who are killed while actively protecting what is most dear to us all. The solemn dignity which we attach to the names of those who have fallen is deeply
I gotta visit some of these places.
ingrained in our national character. As a people, we accord this ultimate sacrifice the highest honour and respect.
The Elizabeth Cross is still presented to those whose loved ones have died in operations or by terrorism. One of the first to receive the award from the Queen herself was the widow of Trooper Kristin Turton, killed in Iraq.
She knew that my husband was killed alongside Corporal Ben Leaning in the same vehicle in Iraq. So that was really, she'd either done some research or she knew about it, but that made it really special because then to her, Chris was a person as well. He wasn't just another soldier that was lost, he was a person, she knew something about him, so that made it really special, yeah.
Very comfortable with the armed services because of her background, her own personal experiences, and her knowledge of the loyalty, the commitment that is part and parcel of the whole of the ethos of the armed services. And in that sense, we haven't changed. It's always been there. One hopes it always will be.
In 2014, the Queen performed a duty very much rooted in the present and the future. She launched the first of Britain's new supercarriers.
Oh, yeah. The Queen Elizabeth, which I believe is still one of the 2. You got the Queen Elizabeth, and I forget the other one.
Lord Mountbatten told my father, on becoming king, that there is...
What year was this?
In 2014,
okay, I was going to say, he's right
the
there.
Queen performed a duty very much rooted in the present and the future. She launched the first of Britain's new supercarriers.
Lord Mountbatten told my father, on becoming king, that there is no more fitting preparation to be king than to have been trained in the Royal Navy. My own personal associations, especially as the proud sponsor of 6 other warships and submarines, remind me that that reputation for excellence continues to this day. I name this ship Queen Elizabeth. May God bless her and all who sail in her.
She's going to christen it. Boom.
HMS Queen Elizabeth, a symbol of Britain's military
It's really
prowess,
nice.
whose name links today's forces with a monarch who has revered their service and sacrifice for many decades.
Beautiful.
2014 will be remembered as the year the British combat mission in Afghanistan finally came to an end. In terms of longevity, it outlasted both the First and Second World Wars put together. The mood was quite different for the Queen's 90th birthday, which saw a special day of celebration across the UK. It went without saying that the armed forces were heavily involved in the festivities, not only in Windsor, where the Queen greeted the crowds, but also with gun salutes in the four corners of the country.
Wow.
I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Alan Spencer and his daughter Charlotte.
Her Majesty, in her later years, may not have been seen as regularly on the parade square, but she still took the welfare of veterans and their families very seriously. This was a trip to the Hague Housing Trust in Surrey to see new and affordable homes that were built for veterans.
Nice.
Her Majesty has been our patron since she became Queen, and in fact came to some of our homes to open them as Princess Elizabeth in Jersey 70 years ago. So to have her back, to show her what we've been doing, to be able to explain, and for her to meet people who made it happen, but also meet people who are going to live in the homes, was just so special.
As Her Majesty reached the twilight of her reign, not even she could have predicted how Britain would be confronted by an unseen enemy that threatened our lives, livelihoods, and economy. Thousands of forces personnel answered their country's calling to support the nation's campaign against the COVID-19 virus. Millions of viewers tuned in to hear the Queen's message of reassurance.
While we have faced challenges before, this one is
It's one of our last public conversations.
different. This time we join with all nations across the globe in a common endeavor, using the great advances of science and our instinctive compassion to heal. We will succeed, and that success will belong to every one of us. We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again.
The coronavirus pandemic produced incredible stories of human endeavour and amazing acts of kindness. The NHS fundraising efforts of Captain Tom Moore, a 100-year-old veteran, made him a national hero and just about the only member of the public to come face-to-face with the Queen during the pandemic. And that was to receive his knighthood.
Nice. I was about to say, she's dubbing him.
At Remembrance Time in 2020, the Queen wore a face mask in public for the first time as she made a poignant pilgrimage to the grave of the unknown warrior at Westminster Abbey to mark the centenary of his burial.
Your Majesty, on Armistice Day, we will mark 100 years since the burial of the unknown warrior.
After the Queen touched her bouquet,
All those that were missing in action and never found.
her equerry laid it on a corner of the grave. In 2021, the Queen and the nation lost the person whom she described as her strength and stay. The Duke of Edinburgh had been admitted to hospital on the 16th of February, and his treatment took a whole month, which included a heart procedure at St Bartholomew's Hospital. He returned to Windsor Castle, but died on the 9th of April, 2 months before his 100th birthday. The armed forces played a key role in his funeral at St George's Chapel, which was restricted by the pandemic. Many newspapers highlighted the monarch's dignity and stoicism as she mourned her husband at a distance from the rest of the family. But despite her loss, the Queen continued with her work as sovereign. Just a few weeks later, she flew onto Royal Navy
You gotta have a certain stamina and perseverance to do
Navy
this.
flagship
At that
HMS
age.
Queen Elizabeth.
Oh my goodness.
To wish the ship's company well as they prepared to embark for the
I mean, anyone could have abdicated by now, but she's got some perseverance.
Far East on Britain's first carrier strike deployment in 11 years. She took the chance to meet some of the 1,700 personnel on board the carrier, which included a detachment of 250 from the United States. It was another of those moments when Her Majesty gave a glimpse of her continued commitment to her armed forces, a commitment that began on her 16th birthday and endured for decades.
I've never seen this type of regiment right here. This is cool.
2022, and the nation's love for Her Majesty the Queen was never louder or clearer as she celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, an astonishing record-breaking reign. This appearance on that palace balcony was a welcoming reassurance for a nation so long under her reign. Her increasingly fragile health and mobility issues had already seen the Prince of Wales replace her at Troop in the Colour, and she was forced to turn to the television to watch a star-studded Jubilee concert in her honour, and even the Epsom Derby. It was clear she was deeply touched by the affection of the nation she had served for so long. For generations of Elizabethans, the world will never be the same.
70 years of reign.
And for the armed forces who honoured her long reign, there will never be a commander-in-chief quite like her.
Wow. What a video. What a video. I now know so much more about her relationship with the armed forces. So I appreciate that recommendation. There's a lot to say, but there's a lot that we just already heard where there's not much to say. What we can say though is the perseverance and stamina was unrelenting, especially the relationship between her and the armed forces. But anyway, appreciate you guys as always. Have a good rest of your day. Peace out. Bye-bye.